guys, welcome back to Blind World Podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Flores. This is episode 9, Blind World Podcast. Thank you guys for supporting and listening to the last episode of Struggles and Achievements, episode 8. Give a nice shout out to my friend Sukiya, who she really enjoyed doing the podcast interview with me. So, I've been re-listening to the last episode podcast. I was just like realizing that there is some nice topics that I can speak to you guys, and there is some really real raw experiences that I went through. As you guys know, I'm legally blind. I have low vision problems, night vision problems. My eye condition is rhigma eye pigmentosa, RP. So if you listen and you say, why is Wendy repeating RP? It's because I don't want to say the whole big 2 words, rhigma eye pigmentosa. As you can see, I am back to school. And so a lot of you guys have asked me questions, and close friends too. Like, everybody has asked me, like, yo, what's going on? Like, how you been and everything. And I've been good. I've been doing fine. I've been doing good. Ups and downs, but that's normal. My friends told me, yo, why are you going back to school if you told us that a year ago that you're not gonna go back to school? Well, God has some wires to fix, and He's fixing it, and that's where I can see that the message is going through. And I am so grateful that God is putting me in the right direction. I am going to a 2-year program because it's called The Impact. I really enjoy it a lot. I'm learning about the faith as a Catholic, what's in very deep topics that everybody says as a Catholic. Every month I read 2 books. One book is the Catechism of Adults, and the other book is a book from the topic that's going to be next month. So it's kind of like a preview that what's going to happen to the next topic. And don't get me wrong, this process has been humongous different process I never went in life. And I'm so grateful that God put me in this stage. He's like, girl, you kind of do psychology 100%. You know what? I'll pick you up, but not right now, in the future. And he's like, wait a damn minute. It's a year. You're working. You got a nice job. YouTube is my second job. Part-time and both jobs. I don't consider this as my job. I consider this as a hobby. My first job I really enjoy with people. I socialize too and do all the fun stuff. But I also have school. God was like, all right, since you have a good job, we might take another step and forward. Like a little kid. You know how a baby, when a baby is born, the baby doesn't start walking right away. No, the baby experiences the floor, everything around, their parents. They don't start talking. They start to mind their little world. Like, sometimes we don't even know how to explain what the baby wants to do or what he's doing or she. It's similar as a baby. The baby explores and then starts to crawl. A few months later or years later, the baby starts walking. And that's how God was telling me to. I went to school for 2.5 years in NICC in Iowa my major was going to be psychologist, guidance counselor, but unfortunately I couldn't do it because of issues I had in school, which I'm going to talk to them later during this podcast. God told me to go back a step back. He's like, you need to take a step back. And that's when I realized, I do really need to take the step back, which I did. When I started in elementary, I was not smart. I wasn't even intelligent. I was intelligent, but the one problem thing that happened is that I only spoke Spanish is my first language because I come from Mexico. All my life I've been born here. I really don't know Mexico 100%, but my parents have told me back in their hometown that this is how it is. They give me a bunch of examples. I really like it. So I started speaking Spanish. I started as a preschool kid. Did not understand it. They sent me to a class called ELL. Back then it used to be English Learning Language, but now it's ESL, English Speaking Language. I think that's the abbreviation. I am not 100%. English Learning Language. I had it from the school. Elementary wasn't that easy. I sometimes would cheat some of my homework because I did not know English. Most of the times I would get myself frustrated. The bad part is that both of my parents back then, they did not even learn how to speak English, but thankfully now they do. Back then it was a very hard struggle. Since I'm the oldest, I suffer, such as language, my skin tone, people surrounding on me. So they put me with a bunch of tutor teachers who teach me how to speak English. Middle school, it was like the worst 3 years. That's when I was in 6th grade. I was like, oh, this is a new school. Like, I really like it. English is growing. I'm starting to read more. Do all these things. In reality, I got bullied. Not just because of my disability. Yeah, just my skin and my body, how I am. A lot of people would always judge me. Oh, you got this, you got that. For an example, one day I was going in my locker back in middle school, and for some odd reason, I don't know if they were making that as a joke or they made it as a purpose, but when I went to my locker, all suddenly they were like knitting. They made a hole in my backpack, and when I was going to my locker to go pack my stuff to go outside and wait for the bus, when I was going middle of my walk, my things were falling apart. I felt so embarrassed and humiliated. People were like laughing. It wasn't only students who bullied me, it was also teachers. Also, not all. Some teachers bully me. I'm not gonna say what middle school I went to because I don't misjudge here. That I tell myself, I don't belong here. I don't even belong here. But one day an angel was like, this needs to stop, and I will try my best to do everything in my hand. And that's when I came out as I have low vision problem. The lady's like, I understand because I have a family member who's like that, like you. And I'm like, thank the Lord there's an angel. Angels exist in this world. She defended me, everything, and I was so proud. She was the one who helped me become more success today than anybody else. That was the beginning of my new journey. Teachers never cared that I got bullied, I got mistreated, none of that. So when this lady, this teacher, the nice teacher that came along, she was generous with me. She's like, do you need anything? Like, do you need this? Do you need that? I'm like, no. And she's like, don't be shy, Wendy. I know you want something. And I'm like, no. And then she's like, well, you do need it. And she always gave me. So that was my end of 8th grade. And in high school, a lot of damage, but it was a little bit of damage. When I was a freshman in high school, a 9th grader, I was like getting bullied, but I defended myself. There'll be times that if I defend myself, they're gonna backstab me again. And I'm like, enough is enough. Like, I gotta stand up. I have to defend myself. I have to go far in life because not in my whole life, people are gonna be there for me. I have to be there for myself. Going back to ELL, like I ended in middle school because all I wanted to do is join music and orchestra. It did happen. I really enjoyed it in orchestra. It was good. I'm gonna talk about activities while I did in school another day. ELL I ended in when I was a seventh grader, for those of you who were wondering. So high school, that's when I struggled more. That's when the struggles came. And I'm like, there's something that I have to do. Like, if I learn how to defend myself, I need to learn how to advocate. And when I heard the word advocate from another person, I was like, what is that word? It's that you need to ask for help. You need to advocate. And I'm like, wow. I was like, that's what I need to advocate. Sophomore year came, and that's when I asked for help. Not just my eyes, it was mainly because of the equipment I was using, like textbooks and books that I have to read. They had to find another alternative way to make more accessible so I can read them, so I don't get tired, I don't be lazy or sad or depressed. Sometimes it did work, sometimes it didn't work. I graduated in high school, thank goodness. 2018, I had to accommodate some of my stuff. The pages, like papers I had to return if they told me to do it tomorrow and it's due by tomorrow. For me, it was due by Fridays. All my homework assignments were due by Fridays because I feel like I have like a learning disability. I haven't investigated, but I'm more intrigued to investigate someday what kind of learning disability I have. I mean, I have Joubert syndrome, which is another topic for another podcast. What it is and what conditions, symptoms, and all that stuff. But it's like a new genetic thing that comes from the brain. So that's why I can't memorized or think the knowledge. I went to the blind school for almost a year, 11 months exact. Graduated in 2019 in the blind school. Got my certificate. That same year, I went to college at NICC in Iowa. I was doing so good for my first semester. And then my second semester, that's when I realized that I was struggling. Not just because of the teachers, it was the subjects that I was struggling, plus in my learning disability. And in college, I couldn't get the right accommodations, unfortunately. Some of them, not all of them. I also was struggling a lot with the textbooks and with the large print braille. A lot of people say, oh, it's easy in college. No, it's not. It takes a lot of work. Props to those people who go to college and get their majors off. Those guys make me inspired to forward and just do the best that you can do. The pandemic hits. It's like, wow. Quarantine, isolating. I had classes to do online, like we were moving online. Since everything was online, we had to be on Zoom, not sponsored. Zoom was starting to kick in. I really like Zoom. That's where I meet my psychologist every month. It helps. Yeah, sometimes the internet goes down, but that doesn't affect for us. We keep going. Teachers then like how my face was all over the screen. There was this particular teacher that I had this subject teacher didn't like how I was doing the job in that subject, and she's like, you need to move back, and she kept saying it in class, and I can't see the board. What I did that after when she told me that, I was like, you know what, I need to do something. So the whole class, I'm just sitting there behind, and she's asking me questions, and I'm like, I can't see the board. Like I was telling her, like I can't see the board. Like I was repeating it until during the class, there was one point that I pretended that my internet was down, but instead I just left the Zoom class because I got so mad. So that was when I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be continuing going to this class if she's going to do this to me all the time. So I ended up dropping that class, unfortunately, and I had to take that subject 3 times, like before the pandemic and after during and after the pandemic. So it was very interesting and seeing how people like this kind of teachers be disrespecting you even though they don't know you 100% behind the screen. Like people didn't know, and I get it. We were all in the pandemic. We were all locked in. Like some of us there wanted to understand, others wanted to accept it, and that was it. So that was my experience in college. So then I decided to drop my whole year in college because I was having bad grades and I had issues with teachers. So the following year, I took a year off of education and I was like, I'm just gonna be done with school. That's what I told myself. I'm like, I'm gonna be done with school. Like, this is the end. And college is not for me. Like, some people, college is not for everybody. College can be for someone who really wants to take their career path deeper and have like a future job, like a good future job. But in my case, I told myself education is not it for me. So I decided to just work. I thought I was finished. Nope. A little angel said, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you a second chance since you love education. We're going to put you in a spot. It's not going to be that hard. It's also not going to be easy for you. Since you love reading and writing, why not go to religious studies? And that's when a priest told me, the church that I go to, a priest told me, hey, there's a 2-year program from the Archdiocese of Dubuque that is trying to host it. And all you got to do is go each month the class for 6 hours. And you learn more about God. And I'm like, I'll think about it. This was summer of 2023. And I'm like, I'll think about it. And he gave me everything, and I searched it up and everything. And here we are, a year later. I am so grateful that I'm in this program for 2 years. I am finished with my first year, and I'm going for my second year. It was kind of easy for me because since I like reading, and I read a lot of books, it wasn't that hard. So each month I read 2 different books. A book that we had to read monthly that was assigned with us, and then another book that is called the Catholic Catechism for Adults. So we had to read 2 chapters of that thick book. It's like almost a little less thicker than the Bible, in my case, of how I look at it, with large print. It's so crazy how the Bible is much thicker than the Catechism of Adults and the Catechism of the Church. The Bible is the thickest book that I ever seen in my whole life. So yeah, I am so grateful. Every month we have to write a reflection too about what we learned, or we have any questions or things like that, and then our sponsor, which is our mentor, will have a meeting with us or have a discussion with us of what we read personally in our pages. Usually I always write from 2 to 3 pages, but it's up to 500 words that we have to write. That's all we got to do, so that's easy. And then I have the summer off, June, July, August. In September, I'll be starting my second year of the Impact program. It's pretty much going to be the same thing. Go to class once a month and for 6 hours, drinking a lot of caffeine so I can be wide awake, eating a lot of chips so I can be wide awake, or eating a lot of protein bars to be wide awake. And yeah, so that's how it is. And I'm pretty excited. And I don't know, God knows what He's doing for me. Probably I might be going back to college. Who never knows? I might make another video on YouTube that says, hey, I'm going back to college, part-time or full-time. I don't know, depending on how well I can handle it. And of course, these experiences I had with my other career, it's basically, it wasn't too hard. It was like an easy decision if I want to take it or if I want to deny it. The program that I'm at Impact, the teachers and the staff are very nicely, like, they're like, hey, if you need anything, just ask us. Like, they large print the PowerPoint if the speakers have PowerPoint. So every month there's a speaker that speaks with us about the topic, like the sacraments, Mary and Joseph and Jesus, the Trinity family, things like that. It is so amazing. And I'll make like a separate podcast when I get done with this program, is how was my experience, what I've learned, what I want to share to the public, and all those kinds of things. So I'm very grateful on where I'm at. They give us breakfast if we want to eat breakfast around like 8:30 from 9, and then we start class at 9. And then we break at like 11-ish. And then we go to lunch like at noon. So, pretty cool. Lunch, they give us lunch too. And then let's say from 1 to 3 is basically we're in class. So it's a pretty sweet schedule, honestly. I really enjoy it. Like, every month I come with something new and I tell it to my parents or I tell it to people around me. It's just like people can see that I'm very happy on what I'm doing right now, and they kind of know what my like right path should be, and I'm very happy for that. Well, that is all the struggles that I went through of all the years ever since elementary. Thank you for hearing my podcast, episode 9 on Blind World Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below about your feedback about this episode. Don't be afraid to share this episode with your friends and family members. Thank you for all the love and support, and we'll see you in the next episode. Adios. Bye.